About aging with independence. It's something that a lot of people have interest in. And something I want you to think about is when you were in your 30s and 40s, how did you envision what your life would be like in your 60s and 70s? Did you envision that it was going to be more like this? Or more like this? It's something to think about. I've been working with patients for quite a while, and I've never had someone say, Alaina, I want to live to be 100, and the last 30 years I want to spend like the person in the wheelchair. Most people tell me they want to live, they'll say, Alaina, I want to live my life on my own terms, in my own home, doing what I want to do, when I want to do it, and then go peacefully in my sleep one day. Is anyone on board with that plan? Good. Who here is familiar with the term aging in place? That might be something that some people have heard about being able to stay in your own home. So we're going to talk about some tough topics that are not always the most comfortable things to think about, but hopefully we can put some things in perspective and give you some easy tips you can do to be helping with improving your independence as you age. Now, for the first scary topic, who has ever heard of, it's kind of a popular little commentary, put grandma in prison. This is a commentary on the state of what nursing homes are typically like in a lot of areas across the country. And if you think about what we want to look at what nursing homes are like so that we can have an idea of, yes, there is a purpose there at times, but we want to try to avoid that and look at some solutions there. So, if we were to send grandma to prison, she'd get a shower every single day. There'd be video surveillance everywhere, so if she ever fell or needed something, there was someone watching what was going on. 3 meals a day, access to library, television, gym, computer access, and free medications if needed. Let's look at what nursing homes are like. How many of you have visited someone in a nursing home before? Okay. How many times, I mean, if you go on the internet and you look up nursing home care, you will find a lot of pictures of places advertising about, we take great care of grandma, and look at everyone smiling and doing activities. If you've actually visited people in the nursing home, how often do you see people just laying in bed? Or do you see people out, walking around, going to shows, socializing? It'd be ideal if people were doing more of those things in some of our assisted care facilities, but the reality is we don't see a lot of that. They usually have dinner around 4 to 5 p.m. and then they turn the lights off by 7. So if you're used to doing something after 7 p.m., like, I don't know, night on the town, then that day is done. They typically, you get showered, like they put you in a chair and wheel you to the bathroom to get showered about twice a week. And you are in a smaller area, and the toughest part about being in a bed and not being able to get up and do what you want to do when you want to do it is the call light. Is anyone familiar with a little call light if you've ever been in the hospital? Average wait times for call lights in the best facilities are 3 to 4 minutes, which is, that's pretty good. Someone's there within 3 to 4 minutes of when you need them. But if it happens to be, I don't know, at 7 or 8 in the morning when people are first waking up, what does everyone have to do when they get up in the morning? Everybody has to go to the bathroom, right? Do you want to hit that call light and wait 20 to 30 minutes for someone to assist you to be able to go to the bathroom? Most people want to be able to go when they need to go. So these are some things to kind of think about. I'm not saying that all nursing home facilities or skilled nursing facilities are bad places, but these are some of the things that I've seen working in those facilities, and I've seen patients bringing back to me as well. So you're almost at the mercy of people taking care of you, what you are and are not allowed to do, and when you're able to do it. Again, remember what we first said. My own life, on my own terms, in my own house, doing what I want to do, when I want to do it. So let's talk about some ways to have more of that lifestyle. Oh, I forgot, and you get to pay $235 a day to lay in bed and wait for someone to come and help you go to the bathroom. But if you put grandma in prison, you wouldn't have to pay any of that. I'm very much kidding. We're not suggesting to put grandma in prison, but it's just kind of an interesting look at what we look at for long-term care. So what we're going to talk about tonight, and everything I'm going to talk about, the main points are all on this one page. So don't feel like you've got to remember everything. I told some of you that were here early, I have the memory of a goldfish. So if I don't have it written down, then when I get home, I'll remember thinking, you know, I heard something really good tonight, but I forgot what I was supposed to actually do about it. So we have all the information on here, so when you get home and talking to your friend or spouse and saying, hey, you know what you missed tonight? You've got something that you can share with them for the good information. What we're going to be covering are the 7 B's, which are the better B's of success for aging independently. So what we're going to be covering, things that you can be improving with to better your odds of being able to live your life the way you want, is to have better balance, better breathing, better bones, better bites, or what you're eating, a better butt, better brain, and better boogie. Because we all know those people who are still moving, things that keep moving tend to stay moving, right? So, some of these may seem a little bit interesting, but I promise they all have a purpose. So, when we talk about having better balance, how many of you know somebody who's had a fall?
I did.
Yeah, falls are scary things, and we don't think about falls when we're younger because we kind of bounce a little bit. But as we get a little older, we don't bounce as much. And as far as accidental deaths in people over the age of 65, falls are the #1 cause. And that's the ones that are directly attributed to a fall. When you look at some of the risk factors for falls, going into the hospital, that time in bed where you're not able to get up. Let's say you fall down and break a hip, and then you're stuck in bed for a while before you're allowed to put weight on it, or before you're allowed to get moving. In that time, while you're hanging out in that hospital bed, you're going to get puny, and you're going to lose some of your function. And people don't just bounce back from those without specific training. So if we can avoid a fall, we can avoid a whole lot of other ramifications with that. And we'll cover some of those risk factors a little bit farther down when we talk about fractures. So the first thing that we're going to cover today is about postural balance. So we tend to think of balance as, can I stand on one foot and close my eyes and pass a sobriety test on the side of the road? What we're talking about is real world balance. Can you stand up and get dressed? Can you move to the side in your kitchen to open up or step back to get out of the way of the cabinet door that's opening? Can you get around in and out of your car, and in and out of church, in and out of the grocery store without being nervous about having a fall? So that balance does not just include, can I do the hard stuff? First, we've got to talk about, can you stand still with good balance? Or can you sit with good balance? And a lot of times, I really see this if you're over at the turnpike in Illinois, at the stoplight, because you're going to be there for a little while if you catch it, and you look around at the people next to you, do you see anyone in the car next to you sitting like this? Or are most of them sitting like this? Right? So one of the things that we're going to look at, I have a special guest. I'm going to bring him out. This is Skinny. Skinny is a spine. And what I want you to notice on Skinny, he's got a pelvis, and there's part of a head up here. I'm not exactly sure where the rest of it went. But when we look at this spine, essentially, it's just a stack of blocks, right? A lot of times people tend to think there's a neck or a low back or a mid back. The reality is you have one spine, and the whole thing works together. So what I want you to think about as far as having balance in the spine, I'm good at knocking him over, so I gotta be careful. What I want you to think about for your spine is those blocks of your spine are essentially just like little kids' building blocks. A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. If I stack those blocks up on a level surface and I let go, gravity will allow each block to just rest on the block beneath it and just stack. If I take that bottom block and I tilt it, what's going to happen to the rest of the blocks above? they're either falling over or something somewhere has got to pull you back up. So think about how you're sitting right now. Do you feel like you're sitting with your weight, with the weight of your head stacked through the bones of your neck, the bones of your back, and through that pelvis? Or do you feel like you're kind of just hanging there? Like you're just sort of resting against the seat? What do you think? Who here feels like they have great posture going on right now? My mom raised her hand. Good job. So one of the first things you can be doing to work on posture is not necessarily to work on your balance, is working on your posture. That's something you can do when you're hanging out, when you're sitting, when you're wherever you're at. You can always be working on your posture. And I want to show you a quick way how to find your good posture. I also affectionately call this how to find your lazy posture, because if you've ever been told to sit up straight or stick your chest out or pull your shoulders flat back, you know that after a minute or two, what happens? It's just exhausting. Whereas if we can kind of find that balance, we got to remember the bones are the load-bearing support structure of your body. So we want the weight to go through the bones, not through those other tissues. Just like in a building, you want the weight to go through the support beams, not through the drywall. Well, we want the weight of your body to go through the bones, not through the muscles, ligaments, tendons, nerves, all those other tissues. They're not designed to hold up the weight of your body. And if you think about your head weighing as much as a bowling ball, a small bowling ball, but a bowling ball nonetheless, is it easier to hold a bowling ball close to you or way out here? Yeah, the closer it is, so the more your head is balanced, kind of like a golf ball on a tee over that spine, then it's a lot easier for a lot of the next things that we're going to talk about. Now, who would like to learn how to have lazy but good posture? A few people? So, I'm going to grab a chair, and I will try to explain this as best as I can, because I know it's a little hard to see in the back. I'm going to borrow this for a moment. So what we do to have better posture is if you're sitting in your chair, you want to scoot up a little bit towards the edge, off of the back of the chair. You want to let one or both of your knees down just a little bit. Now I'm going to take my hands and slide them down the side seam of my shirt, reaching underneath my bum, and feeling for those bony butt bones. If you have any grandkids, you probably know what I'm talking about when I say the bony butt bones. What I'll do from there is stick my belly out and down and feel those butt bones rolling back and forth. When you find that spot, if you sit super tall, you'll notice you're feeling more of your thigh. If you're slouching, you're feeling more of your bottom. But in that middle zone, when you find the spot where the butt bones are the boniest and the heaviest, take your hands out. You're just going to let the weight of your head stack through the bones of your neck, bones of your back, through the bony butt bones. And if you notice, how's my posture?
Good.
Does it look, it doesn't look perfect, but does it look like I'm working hard for it? No. It's about finding the balance where I can just stack. I'm not having to work hard, but I'm also not hanging on the muscles and ligaments and other tissues that aren't designed to take that kind of load. And if anyone wants help practicing that afterwards, I'm happy to stay over. I know it's kind of hard to see in this environment. But that's our postural balance. Now next, we covered this a little bit, static versus dynamic balance. Are you okay standing up without falling over? Great. Are you okay dancing side to side without falling over? That's a little bit harder, but that dynamic movement balance is very important. But it's a much easier to maintain good dynamic balance if you can stand up and not already be halfway falling over. How many of you know somebody who walks like this? This is what I call a fall in progress. They're already falling over, they just happen to be stepping to catch up and keep it from happening. So working on that posture and your balance is one of the great ways to be able to stay on your own and decrease your fall risks. Also, your family doesn't look at you and say, oh, they're ready for a fall, or oh, they don't need to be on their own. Again, so some things you want to be mindful of. Okay. Oh, there's Skinny. He got to be on TV today. All right. Now, if you're curious about how you're doing in the balance and stability department, there's an easy thing you can do. You can mark off an area about 10 feet on the floor, and you can put a chair at the end of it. And you can have someone, grandkids always have those smartphones that have little timers on it, and you can have a little game of this, like, let's time how quickly we can do this. But what you'll do is when they say go, you're going to stand up, walk the 10 feet, turn around, walk back, and sit down, and see how long that takes you. If it takes less than 10 seconds, you're in a lower risk category for falls and loss of independence. But if your score in seconds, once you're more than 20 seconds to do that 10 feet, there's a very high risk that you don't need to be on your own, that you will, very high risk for falls, very high risk for loss of mobility. So those are some things you can, if you want to give yourself a little quick test, kind of be looking. If it's less than 10 seconds, you're good. If it's more than 10 seconds, you might need to talk with your doctor or physical therapist about some strategies to improve that. This is not a number that's your number. It's not like IQ where that's what you've got sort of situation. This is something that you can improve, and you can actually improve pretty quickly within a couple of weeks. And if you can take your time in doing these tests, even just knocking off 5 to 6 seconds is huge in improving your functional mobility and independence. Okay. Now I'm going to ask everyone to do something that's going to seem a little bit against the rules, but I'd like everyone to slouch all the way over. Now take a deep breath. It's kind of hard, isn't it? Now come up. Now take a deep breath. Now, how many of you were breathing through your nose versus through your mouth? Just kind of something interesting to think about. When you are slouched over, you close down the space in your lungs, and you don't have as much room for your lungs to expand and get the oxygen in. Less room to get the oxygen in means less oxygen is coming in, and that has its own set of issues with it as far as can affect, that can give you brain damage. It's slow brain damage. That's where a lot of people have some dementia types of issues. There are plenty of causes of dementia, but this is one of them. So adequate breathing may seem like a small thing because we take it for granted. Oh yeah, breathing. Yeah, I did that today. We want to make sure that we're doing it well. So if you've noticed, we can breathe through our nose, we can breathe through our mouth. Your nose has this wonderful system called your sinuses that swirls the air around, warms it up, cleans it, gets out some of the germs before the air goes into your lungs. If you're breathing through your mouth, you've blown out most of the air before your body has time to even use it, and it's not getting that nice filtration, especially when it's, 20 degrees outside and it's a little bit cooler. So some things to be thinking about. Oops. I might have skipped that a little bit. So things to be thinking about. Your nose does have a purpose. So having that good posture, breathing in through your nose. And I tell people, breathe in through your nose like you're smelling the roses, out through your mouth like you're blowing out the birthday candles. If that's your breathing pattern, you'll get more birthday candles. Oh, and I've got on here pneumonia. Remember what it felt like when you were slouched over and you tried to take a deep breath in? You're really not moving a lot of air. So it's not too hard for a little germ to get down in your lungs and hang out there and fester and start to develop some pneumonia, and you're never really able to, you can't get enough air in to get an effective, productive cough, to really get things moving and get that out of there. And how many of you have known someone who had a fall, went to the hospital, they were laying down for too long, they ended up with pneumonia, breathing problems, next stop was the morgue. These are common patterns that we see, but they're common patterns that we can break and prevent with the right knowledge and planning. Okay, better bones. I'm sure that you all have heard about osteopenia and osteoporosis. Essentially, this is where the cross beams within the bones start to kind of break down, and you have fewer beams, which allows for compression fractures to happen. Now, this is not, if you've ever had a diagnosis of osteopenia or osteoporosis, it's not a death sentence. It's not a guarantee you're going to have a fracture. It should be a wake-up call to say you don't want to end up with a fall and a fracture that can be complicated because of this. So there are a lot of solutions you can be doing to help with that. But you have to actually know if you have osteopenia or osteoporosis. And one of the statistics that I came across a while back that was pretty shocking to me, that almost 60% of patients who have issues with osteopenia and osteoporosis have never been told, hey, you probably have osteopenia or osteoporosis, you need to get a DEXA scan for that. That's a lot of people who have no idea that they're at risk for a fracture. So when you talk to your doctor, ask, do I need to get checked for osteoporosis? Now, common incidence of osteoporosis, about 1 in 10 people who are over 65 just walking around have osteoporosis. About 4 out of 10 are walking around with osteopenia. So if you look around, how many of us are there? You can kind of get an idea that this is really becoming an issue. Now, what your doctor would do if this was a concern is have you do something called a DEXA scan. Essentially, they take 2 x-rays and go through and it measures bone density. So if you've ever had a bone density exam for women, especially postmenopausal, you need to be having those bone density scans on a regular basis. So make sure you're talking to your primary care doctor about that. And I've got this little picture on your handout so that when you are talking to the doctor and he says, oh, your score is a -2 or it's a -3, it'll kind of help you see where you are on that spectrum. We'd like for people to be in the positive, oops, almost took him out there. We'd like for people to be in the positive there. Now, let's talk a little bit about bones. Bones heal in response to the load that you put on them. So if you think about the people you know with osteoporosis, it's usually a small-framed woman, usually fair complexion, light hair. You don't see a lot of obese people with osteoporosis. The reason is the way that your body lays down bone tissue. I think this is the next slide. So the way that your body builds bone is in response to the stimulus that you put into the bone. So if you put more weight through a bone, that stimulates your body to say, hey, put that calcium right here, and it helps you to develop stronger, more dense bone structures. So people like me that are a little on the heavier side, well, I've got a little extra weight going through my bones all the time. I am not promoting that if you're a small female that you should go and become obese. The health ramifications of that are not worth what you need for osteoporosis. But there are some solutions you can do as far as putting weight through your body. You might have seen those, I always think of Sally Field in the Boniva commercial with her little hand weights. One of the things that we tend to encourage people to do is to look into something called an osteoporosis vest or a weighted vest. And it's a little vest you can put on that you put weights in. And usually for a 100-pound woman, you want to be looking at about 15 pounds. 150-pound person, you want to be looking at closer to 20 to 30 pounds. I tell people when you put on that weight, and then go for a walk, that's going to stimulate all of the bones that you would typically break if you were to fall to be much stronger. Now you may notice I have a little picture of a brick wall on here. When I'm talking to my patients about osteoporosis, we kind of look at it, building bones is like building a brick wall. You gotta have the calcium, those are the bricks. You gotta have the vitamin D, that's the mortar, and you have to have a brick layer or some sort of stimulus to say, hey, build the wall here. So if you don't have all three of those things, then you're going to struggle a bit. It's hard to build a wall if you don't have a bricklayer or bricks. So let's talk about how to get some of those. Now you notice there's a little sunshine in the corner. If you've ever been prescribed by your physician to take vitamin D, you know they give you crazy amounts, like 1,000 to 5,000, even 10,000 microunits of vitamin D. And the reason that vitamin D comes in such high units is because your body doesn't absorb it very well. You have to put a lot in there just to get some of it going through your system. What your body will do is make vitamin D. The way that you make vitamin D is you do have to get a little bit of sun exposure. I'm not suggesting move to the beach and sign up for the skin cancer program, but getting about 5 to 10 minutes a day outside, maybe walking with your weighted vest on, is a great program as far as helping to strengthen your bones, decrease your risk of fractures, and improve your bone density. And if you have questions on that, I'm happy. If you have questions on any of this, I'll be hanging out afterwards and I'm happy to answer any of those. Okay. That's a little bit of a hard number to see, isn't it? 1 in 5 people that have a fracture will die in the first year. I'm sorry, 1 in 5, not 1 in 3. 1 in 3 will end up being in a nursing home for at least a year. Remember we talked about nursing homes at the beginning? Is anyone really excited about going that route? And this was one of the reasons I wanted to really include about talking about osteoporosis tonight, is because when a lot of people have a fracture, sometimes it's the fracture that causes the fall, sometimes it's the fall that causes the fracture, but where some of us might fall down and be able to get back up, that person that sustains a fracture, a lot of times they don't even realize that osteoporosis even played a role in it. If you don't understand what the causes of your fractures are, then it's a lot harder to treat them. So understanding what those underlying factors are that resulted in your bones not being quite strong enough to hold up the load of your body weight in a functional dynamic way is pretty important to preventing having issues. And if you've had one fracture because of a fall, your chance of having a second one doubles. And it goes up from the second or third one as well. But the great news is most of it's preventable. It does take some work, but you've got to look at where you are now and where you want to be. So you've heard the expression of ounce of prevention versus a pound of cure. So in the back, I have a little handout. And this one, there's a group out of Atlanta that does osteoporosis education that was fantastic enough to give us some handouts. But I've got a little checklist. This is your blueprint for safety at home. And this is a great thing for you and your spouse or a friend or one of your kids or anyone to come with you. I tell people, have someone do this with you. Because when you're in your own home and you're in your habits of how you move around, you tend to not notice some things that may be risk factors for how to fall. I'll tell you, I'm used to, this is where the throw rug is. I just know where it is, and I don't even think about it. But where the problem comes in is when you have to get up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom, it happens, and the lights aren't all the way on, and you're trying to get to where you need to go in a hurry, that's when the bad falls happen. And usually it's tripping over something that you didn't see, some clothes or shoes on the floor, or maybe a throw rug. So go through this checklist at home and kind of be looking at what some of those safety things are. And get someone who's not in your house all the time to walk through with you, because they will notice things faster than those people who are just, if I go to my mom's house, I grew up in that house. I know where everything is. I don't even give it a second thought. But when I go to a patient's house or a screen, we're looking through those things, I see things completely differently. I don't know if you remember when people, I don't know if some of you still use those corded phones, but they used to, instead of having a cordless phone, they would have a 20-foot phone line that would go from the wall to whatever room they were going to be hanging out in. They're huge fall risk. oxygen lines. Especially if you have a family member who has oxygen lines in the house, those can be dangerous. So this is a great way to look through your house and see what safety things might be becoming an issue. Okay, Better Bites. How many of you have heard of a program called Meals on Wheels? It's a great program, and I think it's highly underutilized. A lot of times people don't understand the difference between malnutrition and starving. Just because you're putting food into your body, if it's not nutritious food, you're not getting those things you need. And as we age, a lot of times we start to lose our appetites a bit. If you're not getting the nutrition into your body that you need, your body will start robbing it. If you're not getting enough calcium in your diet, your body will pull it from your bones. If you're not getting enough protein in your diet, your body will pull it from your muscles. This is where you see people start gradually losing weight. Less weight, you are going to lose some of your balance, you're going to lose some of your bone density, you'll lose your muscle mass, you'll lose your independence. So that nutrition side of things, we tend to overlook that a little bit. We're like, oh, I'm doing exercise. But if you're not getting the right ingredients into your body, you're not going to necessarily like what you're getting as an end result. So I tell people, make sure you're getting a varied diet. Make sure you can pronounce everything that goes in your mouth. I don't know if you've ever read the nutrition label on some of the things that we get at the grocery store. If you can't pronounce it, your body probably wasn't designed to process it well. And you end up with expensive urine, I suppose, where your body flushes those things out. But your body ends up having to spend your resources to sort out where is the nutrition in this massive stuff that's come into the stomach. Whereas if you have a varied diet with, we always talk about whole foods, plant-based, versus the McDonald's diet, lots of preservatives, lots of salt, lots of fat. So be thinking about what goes into your mouth is going to come out in either a good or negative way to your total health. And don't forget water. One of the things that I see a lot of people struggle with that they end up becoming hospitalized for is simple dehydration. How many of you have ever heard of someone, they just couldn't get up? Like they were in a chair and they just couldn't get up. And it's like, well, why are they in the hospital? They couldn't get up. A lot of times that's because they weren't getting enough water intake. So if you take your weight, so if I take my weight, 190 pounds. If I divide that number by 2, that's 95. I need to be drinking 95 ounces of water per day to support my current body that I have. Which is why I carry one of these and try to drink it often. So be thinking, how often are you drinking water? Tea and coffee don't count. Tea and coffee tend to make you have to go to the restroom a little bit more, but just good old water will really get the job done. And that's a nice excuse for me to go sip of water halfway through. We're a little farther than halfway. Okay, so I've got these on your handouts, but it's just kind of a quick idea of how much calcium you should be getting into your diet each day. And these are great things to take with you to the doctor's office and, how am I doing in this? Do I need a supplement? Calcium supplements are great. They're not as good as getting your calcium from leafy green vegetables in a varied diet, but getting it in however you can is going to be better than not at all. And here's a nice varied diet. You see it includes fish, beans, vegetables, and a small amount of dairy as well. Those are great ways to get calcium into your diet. And again, I have these on your handout, but feel free to, I believe there's some program rating scorecards in the back. If you want me to send you any of this, put your email on there and I'll reach out and I'm happy to send. I know sometimes these are a little bit hard to read, but if you have questions there, I'm happy to stay after and also send that out to you. Or if you need us to mail it, we can do that as well. Okay. This is exactly what you were thinking of when you thought about retirement, isn't it? Having a better butt. People giggle at me a little bit about this, and the point of this is not for your pants to fit better. The point of this is to have strong, stable hips. And the buttock, muscles of the buttock are the ones that control a lot of things with walking and balance. Now, how many of you know somebody, and I always have my patients say, you know, my husband's butt just fell right off when he turned 70. I don't know where it went, but it just fell right off. If you're not using those muscles, you've heard if you don't use it, you lose it. If you're not using those muscles regularly, they will get weak and they won't be holding you up. The stronger your hip muscles are, the more compressive forces they can give across the hips. You have stronger bones, less risk of fractures. Also, having stronger hips is going to result in decreased pain in the hips, knees, ankles, feet, decreased pain in the neck, upper back, shoulder, decreased falls, improved breathing, improved digestion, decreased risks of fracture if you do have a fall, and I think I'm missing one or two other ones in there. There's a lot of great benefits to having good strength through the hips and the buttocks. So something to think about, if you're in the hospital, they'll bring in someone like me to say, hey, help us figure out, is this person safe to go home? And there's one easy way to tell if someone needs to go home or if they need to go to assisted care. I call it the toilet test. Can you get up from the toilet? If you can't get up and down from the toilet in the hospital, those are usually a little higher toilets. How are you going to do that at home? And the bathroom is a place where a lot of falls and fractures happen. So I call it the toilet test. So every time you get up from the toilet, I want you to be thinking, am I passing the toilet test? Can I easily get up and down from the toilet? And the way that you can get better at this, it'll take you about 2 to 3 weeks, but people who have that do this consistently do really well with it. I'm not going to say that everybody needs to go and do 50 squats every day, but I want you all to try something. Whenever you stand up, I want you to look up. Look up at something a little taller than you are. So if we were to look at the word toilet as you stand up, give it a try. So scoot up to the edge of your seat. Get your feet back underneath your bottom. And then look up as you're standing up. You'll notice it's a little different than you're used to. Most people are used to looking at their toes or looking at the floor when they stand up. But if every time that you stand up, you look up, you're essentially doing a squat, which is a great way to strengthen the muscles of your legs and back. It's also a great way for you to strengthen the muscles of your legs and back, decrease back problems. And how many of you find yourself having to like rock yourself back and forth to get in and out of a chair? We've all been there, especially those lazy boy chairs. You get sunk back in there, it's like you need a crane to get out of that thing sometimes. So what we talked about here, scoot up to the edge of the seat first. When you go to stand up from sitting, the point of standing up is to get your body above your feet. So if I'm sitting with my feet out here, if my bottom's way back here and my feet are out in the front, it's really hard to get up there. But if I scoot up to the edge and get my feet kind of underneath my bottom, then all I'm doing is pushing down through my feet to rise up. I'm not flinging my body over and then trying to rely on my back and balance to pick me back up. So, scoot up to the edge of your seat, get your feet underneath your bum, and then look up to stand up. If every time you stand up during the day, you're looking up to stand up, your hips will get stronger, your knees will feel better, your back will feel better. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks if that's your habit. But how often do you stand up in a day? Up and down from bed, up and down from the toilet, up and down from the breakfast table, up and down from the toilet again, up and down in and out of the car, up back and forth at the doctor's office, or up and down in chairs there. For events like this, up and down. So that's a lot of up and down through the day. So I'm not suggesting you have to do a whole lot of exercise, but if we can take your daily habits for things you're already doing and turn them into things that are going to help you be stronger and more independent, then we'll go for that. Oh, and people ask me, where do I get one? Oh, I need a better butt. Can I buy that on Amazon? No, you have to work for it. And you have to work for your own. This isn't something anyone else can do for you. But your daily habits are going to be the one that we just talked about, looking up to stand up, I'm always a big fan of a good amount of exercise. I'm a physical therapist, of course, I'm gonna say, yay, exercise. I'm not gonna go over a bunch of exercises for this. I want you to look more towards changing your daily habits and how you do things. So that way, if you forget to exercise, your daily habits will get you stronger and keep you stronger as you age. Okay, better brain. How many of you have known someone who cognitively was there and physically was not? It's tough because they're very aware of everything that's going on. Well, there's a flip side of that as well, where you can have a body that's working well, but if you don't have a brain that's functioning well to tell your body what to do and how to do it, there can be a problem there. So a lot of you might have heard about giving yourself either using one of those phone apps for challenging your brain each day, or using crossword puzzles, that sort of thing. A lot of times we'll have people stand on a little piece of foam while they're doing a crossword puzzle. Because those same parts of your brain that coordinate your balance between the back of your brain and the front of your brain, they're called your Purkinje fibers. They're the same fibers that are affected when someone's drunk. So if you've ever seen someone drunk, moving around without a lot of coordination, these are those fibers that we're talking about there. So improving those pathways between the cerebellum, or the back of the brain, and the cerebrum, the front of the brain, are key in not only your movement processing, but also in your cognitive processing. So it's really interesting, some of the studies they've done where people who read the newspaper, if they have them stand on a little balance challenge or a small balance board, they get the brain, not only does their body improve coordination and sequencing, but their brain does too, and it helps people stay sharp. So instead of sitting down to read the newspaper, maybe stand up. Maybe try standing on one foot, or keeping your weight on one foot or the other while you're reading. But doing something dynamic that requires coordination, whether it's for the brain or for the body, or even better for both, is a great way to encourage those staying well. And of course, again, use it or lose it. So if you spend your time by yourself at home watching TV, that's not challenging your brain. It's not challenging your body either. So coming out to events like this, by the way, we do this every month, is a great way to kind of get up and stay engaged. All right, last part is to have a little bit better boogie. And this woman, I don't know if it's gonna play. I don't believe it is, I apologize. This little woman, she gets up and she just starts salsa dancing, and she has the biggest smile on her face. You don't have to be dancing, but you can find something that you enjoy doing. Dancing is a great thing because it challenges your balance and coordination. It gets you moving, it improves your endorphins, your blood flow, your oxygen intake, a whole bunch of things there. But anything that you can find joy in, that can help you be happy and active, are the two keys that we see more than about anything as far as people having enjoying their older years. Because no one says, hey, I'd like to be depressed for my last 20 years. But losing your independence, losing your ability with things such as being able to get up and down from the toilet, being able to go where you want when you want to, those can be things that are kind of tough. Don't accept it laying down. There are lots of resources. I'm a physical therapist. I work with these. Occupational therapists work with these issues. Talk to your doctor about what some of your options are. Because I can't tell you how many times I have someone tell me, oh, well, I'm just getting older. That's just part of getting older. It may be a common thing that happens to people as they get older, but that doesn't mean that you have to have pain, debility, decreased mobility, cognitive and functional decline. There are options. There are lots of things you can do. We covered our 7 B's of trying to help with that, but there's always more resources. So, you've got to be your own advocate. How many of you have someone you're close to, like a spouse, that lost a little bit of weight, but you didn't notice it, but your friend who only sees them once a month noticed it, right? A lot of times we get in these relationships with our physicians where we kind of know each other, and okay, here's what we need, we're in, we're out. Don't be afraid to ask your doctor, hey, I find myself, I haven't had a fall yet, but I've had some almost falls. Do I need to be concerned about having a fracture? How are my levels as far as my vitamin D and my calcium? Do I need supplements? This is not a healthcare environment where somebody is going to be able to know everything that you need off the top of their head and be able to get that done in the 15 minutes they have with you in the doctor's visit. We've got to be advocates for ourselves and our family members to know to ask these questions, because your doctor's going to be looking at what is wrong, what can we help fix. We want to look at those preventative measures as well. So again, your doctor, nurse, physical therapist or occupational therapist, endocrinologists are great, especially for postmenopausal women, for helping. A lot of the information that was provided tonight, as far as some of the images that I put on here, were provided by a company called OsteoLink. So you can search for them on the internet. They have a lot of great information about osteoporosis and bone density management. And how many of you have ever used Google to search for information? It's a great resource. If you were to just search for how do I stay independent, or how do I decrease my fall risk, those are some great, you can find tons of strategies. There's so many committees on osteoporosis management, fall prevention. There are tons of resources out there. And on the whole, they're all fairly good. They're going to give you some good information, at least on how to get started. If you need something more customized, then you probably need a movement assessment with a physical therapist, where they watch how you move, what's strong, what's not, what's flexible, what's not, what are you good at, what are you not good at. By finding those small weaknesses that you might not have noticed, you can start to overcome them. So what's next? It's been nice hanging out with you all this evening, but it's not going to do you any good if you don't put some of it into practice. So what I suggest for you when you leave here is to call someone tonight and say, hey, when can you come over? I want to look at my house and make sure I'm safe here. And I need a fresh set of eyes to kind of look at this with me. So take your form, your blueprint, and go over this with a friend or family member. And this is written down in this box at the bottom as far as what to do next. To look for those hazards. Especially look between where you sleep and where you go to the bathroom. Those are the times when most people, they get up in the middle of the night because they've got to go to the bathroom. They're not quite fully awake. That's the easiest time to have a fall. So really take a look at those areas. Do an inventory of your better Bs. So ask yourself every day, how's my balance? Am I doing a good job with my breathing? How's my posture? Am I doing a good job with my breathing? What about my bones? Am I taking good care to have better bones? Am I eating well, getting good nutrition and hydration? Am I looking up as I stand up so I can have a better bum? And am I doing things daily to promote my brain working well? So those are some little take-home bits that you can be asking yourselves to make those changes in your own life. And the biggest thing, take this with you. Talk to your doctor. Say, what do I need to be concerned about? What are the resources that I need to help ensure that I can live the way that I want to live in my own home, on my own terms, doing what I want to do when I want to do it, and then go peacefully in my sleep. That's our ultimate goal, right? All right. You all have been fantastic. Do you all have any questions? And if you have any one-on-one questions, I'm happy to go over those as well. Yes?
You talked about being out in the sun for 10 minutes. Or if you have a hat on and your clothes, do you get any vitamin D?
That's an excellent question. She asked about if you're wearing a hat and clothes, are you still getting vitamin D? I would not suggest going out in the 20-degree weather right now to get your vitamin D. But you do need to have actual skin exposed. Now, a lot of times we have to worry about things, especially if you've ever had skin cancer before. I let people know those areas that are at high risk, cover, if you have had those on your forehead or cheeks, wear a hat, wear some sun protection there, but then maybe pull up your sleeves a little bit and go for a walk. Or, kind of allow some of that to actually get to your skin, because that's where the vitamin D production happens, is when you get that UV exposure to the skin. Did that answer your question? Yes?
Bones are not just calcium, it's a compound with a lot of phosphorus in it.
Yes, calcium diphosphate.
Shouldn't we worry about phosphorus?
So when we look at, the question was about bones are more than just calcium. Should we worry about some of those other components as well? The same, when we look for, one of the biggest things that I caution people about are carbonated caramelized sodas. Because anything that has phosphoric acid in it is highly attractive to calcium, and it will pull it right out of your bones, and you'll have high calcium urine content. So we want to be getting those same nutrients that we get from a varied diet that we need for our other organ functions as well. Calcium is the most common one that we look at. Mostly what we look at as far as phosphorus is not using it to pull calcium from the body. Does that make sense? But that's also a great question to ask your physician if you're concerned about some of your dietary needs. They're great nutritionists and dietitians that can help with some of those concerns. Yes?
I'm 2 inches shorter than when I was 20 years old. Could that have been prevented?
The question was, he's 2 inches shorter than he was when he was 20. And yes and no. So give me one moment to find something. Okay. So on the spine, we've got those white blocks that we talked about, the vertebrae, the bones. In between them, there's a disc. And that disc, when we're young, is nice and plump and full of water. Throughout the day, we kind of squish it down a little bit. And then when we go to bed at night, if we're well hydrated, it'll plump back up again. As we age, that's why you're shorter in the evening before as compared to the morning. As we age, those discs tend to, instead of being nice and tight, they tend to flatten out like a flat tire a little bit. If you've ever had an MRI or an X-ray, a lot of times people will say, oh, every one of my discs is bulging. We call that aging. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing something bad, but they do tend to flatten out a little bit. So from that side of things, taking good care of your spine can be preventable, but there is a component of aging that is going to result in us becoming a bit shorter. Now, when we look at osteoporosis, the more we can avoid those fractures, because if we're thinking about this little bony part flattening down, those are called osteoporotic compression fractures, where your bones are so weak that they actually start to fracture just from the weight of your own body. Those we can't reverse, but we can try to head them off by having good diet, mobility, and getting some weight through your bones. Did that help answer those questions? Now, on the flip side of that, if your loss of 2 inches is because you started walking like this, then perhaps working on some posture can help out with that as well. Any other questions? Yes?
There was a indication of a T-test. What's a T-test?
A T-test. Let me pull that up real quick. There we go. So your T-score is what the question was, what is a T-test? So good eyes checking out all the stuff in the writing. A T-score is the score that you get from your DEXA scan. So if you notice on this little bone here, -4 means you have significant osteoporosis. -2 is more in the osteopenia range. 0 is normal, and moving on up is where you have stronger bones. So I've got that on your little handout so that if you do have a DEXA scan and your doctor says, oh, your T-score was a -2, hopefully you'll have a nurse or a physician kind of giving you some more information about what that means, but you'll also go into that conversation being a little more educated on what those numbers mean.
What are the words below the little people?
I'm sorry?
What are the words below the little people?
Those are the names of the people, the question was, what are the words below the little people? Those are the names of the people who did the studies, identifying what the T-scores were that correlate to what degree of osteoporosis. But that was the most fun picture I could find that had T-scores on it. The rest of them were charts and graphs, and those are kind of hard to read. All right, I think that maybe, oh, yes, go ahead.
Some people sit on a ball.
Uh,
Is it good?
The question was, some people sit on a ball, and is that good? And when my patients ask me that question, I let them know that you can have bad posture in any chair. So you still have to be mindful of having your good posture, but that little bit of moving around through the day is great for you. So if you can safely use a ball, then I highly recommend it. If you're unsure, then I would recommend you calling someone like, I don't know, Alaina across the street. My phone number is at the bottom of this page in big numbers to go through and help you with strategies on how to do those types of things safely. All right, our hour has come to a close. I'm so glad that you all were able to come, and I'm going to be hanging out here for another 20 minutes or so. So if anyone has any questions, I know sometimes it's tough to ask questions in front of a group of 40 people, but I'm happy to answer anything I can. Thank you again.